Hi everyone, and welcome to Beyond Borders, a podcast where we explore the global issues shaping our world today. In an increasingly interconnected world, events happening thousands of kilometers away can directly affect our economies, politics, and societies. From terrorism and migration to climate change and shifting global power dynamics, today's challenges are complex and deeply interconnected. So, in this episode, we'll have a conversation about how these global issues are shaping what scholars call the emerging world order. So, let's dive in. Welcome back to Beyond Borders. In this episode, me, your host Farida Samad Sheikh, along with my colleagues, will be discussing about emerging world order. Now, I invite everyone to introduce themselves.
Hello, myself Pratiksha Savdekar.
Hi, I am Anuja Rajankar.
Hello, my name is Nikita Metzger.
Hi, I'm Naneshwari Shalke.
Yes, let's dive into the discussion and let us know their insights. When we look at the world today, everything feels interconnected. A war in one country can affect energy prices globally, climate disasters can force people to migrate across continents, and technological innovations can shift global power balances. Take the Syrian civil war, for example. It started as a domestic conflict in 2011 but eventually led to one of the biggest refugee crises in modern history. Similarly, attacks like the 2008 Mumbai attacks or the 2015 Paris attacks forced governments to rethink their security strategies. So, today we'll explore how issues like terrorism, arms trade, migration, and climate change are shaping the emerging world order. To start the conversation, why do you think still terrorism remains such a big global concern today?
Yeah, it's really interesting question. I think terrorism remains such a major concern because it has changed a lot compared to traditional warfare. Earlier, conflict were mainly between countries, but now non-state actors play a huge role. Groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda have shown that even without being recognized state, they can still influence global politics. I mean, around 2014, ISIS controlled large parts of Iraq and Syria and even declare a caliphate. And honestly, worrying is how these groups use social media and online networks to recruit people from different countries.
Yeah, that's actually a really important point.
Exactly. The terrorism does not only affect international politics, it's also changed domestic policies. For example, after the 9/11 attacks, the United States introduced the Patriot Act which expanded the surveillance power. Similarly, after the 2008 Mumbai attacks, India strengthening its counter-terrorism law and intelligence coordination. But this raises an important question. How do government balance security with civil liberties?
Yeah, that's always the tricky part because while security is important, too much surveillance can threaten privacy and democratic freedoms.
That's a really good point. And actually, terrorism and conflicts are also connected to another global issue, that is the arms trade.
Yeah, absolutely. The global arms trade in a massive industry. Countries like the United States, Russia, and China are among the largest exporters of weapons, and sometimes the weapons end up is conflict zones, which makes conflict even more prolonged.
Exactly. A good example is in the war in Yemen, where the continuously supply of weapons has made the conflict much harder to resolve.
Yeah, and that also worsened the humanitarian crisis.
And that leads us to another huge issue that is of refugees.
Yes, and the numbers today are honestly staggering. The Syrian conflict alone displaced more than 13 million people. Many refugees attempted to cross the Mediterranean Sea to reach Europe.
Yeah, and that actually created a major political debate inside but European Union about immigration policies.
But immigration isn't always caused by war. Sometimes people migrate simply because they are searching for better economic opportunities.
Exactly. For example, many workers from South Asia migrate to Gulf countries for employment.
And the remittances the send back home are extremely important for their economics.
Yeah, in fact, India receives one of the largest remittances inflows globally.
But now migration is also increasingly linked to climate change.
Right, climate migration is becoming a major issue. For example, rising sea levels threaten island nations like the Maldives.
Yeah, and if sea levels continue rising, entire communities may have to relocate.
Yeah, climate change is now being viewed as a security issue as well. Extreme weather events are becoming more frequent.
Exactly. For example, the floods in Pakistan in 2022 displaced millions of people.
Yeah, and disasters like that can destabilize entire regions. So, what are countries doing about climate change?
Well, international agreement like the Paris Climate Agreement aim to reduce emission.
But there are still disagreements.
Exactly. Developing countries argued that developed nations should take greater responsibility.
All these issues are also influencing global power politics. After the Cold War, many believed the world has become unipolar with the United States dominating the global politics.
But that seems to be changing now.
One major reason for this shift is the rise of China, I think.
China Belt and Road Initiative has expanded its influence across many regions.
And economically, China has become a major competitor to the US. That's why many scholars say the world is becoming multipolar.
Countries like India, Brazil, and South Africa are also gaining the influence.
And organizations like BRICS are becoming more visible. The global south is increasingly demand reform in global institutions.
For example, there are calls to reform the United Nations Security Council.
Yeah, especially to increase representation for developing countries.
Another trend in the formation of new alliance.
Yes, like NATO expansion and increasing cooperation between Russia and China. So, overall, today's world order isn't defined by a single superpower anymore.
Exactly. Instead, it's shaped by multiple actors and challenges. Another factor that's really shaping the emerging world order today is technology. If you think about it, technological advancements like artificial intelligence, cyber warfare, and digital surveillance are becoming central to global politics. For example, countries are investing heavily in AI not just for economic growth but also for military and intelligence purpose. And honestly, technological competition between major powers, especially the United States and China, is now seen as a key part of global rivalry. So, technology isn't just about innovation anymore. It's about power and influence in international politics.
Yes, that's actually a really interesting point because technology now play a huge role in national security. Cybersecurity has become one of the biggest security concerns for governments around the world. Unlike traditional warfare, cyber attacks can happen silently and can target critical infrastructure like power grids, banks, or communication systems. For example, there have been several accusations of state backed hackers targeting elections or government systems. And what's scary is that cyber attacks can disrupt entire economics without a single soldier crossing a border. So, in a way, cyber warfare is becoming a new form of conflict in the modern world.
Yeah, and the challenge is that it's often very difficult to identify who exactly responsible for this attack. And another dimension of technology in global politics is information warfare. Social media has completely changed how information spread across the world. While it's helped people to stay connected, it can also be used spread misinformation, propaganda. For instance, misinformation campaign during election have raised serious concerns in several countries. And honestly, when false information spread quickly online, it can influence public opinion and even create a political instability. So, information has basically become a powerful tool in global politics.
Yeah, and that shows how digital platforms now play a role not just in communication but also in geopolitics.
Another major factor shaping the global order today is economic competition between major powers. One of the best examples is the trade tensions between the United States and China. These tensions have affected global supply chains, technology industries, and even international trade policies. For example, restrictions on semiconductor exports and technology transfers have become part of this economic rivalry. And when two major economies compete like this, the effects are felt across the global economy.
And it also forces many smaller countries to balance their relationship with both powers. Energy resources are another major factor in global politics. Many conflicts and alliances are influenced by access to oil, natural gas, and other energy resources. For example, countries in Middle East have historically played a significant role in global energy market. And when energy supplies are disrupted, it can affect economies around the world. Today, when energy security has become an important priority for many countries.
Exactly, and recent global events have really highlighted how important energy politics can be. A recent example of how geopolitics and energy intersect is the Russia Ukraine war. This conflict has had major global consequences, not just politically but also economically. For example, the war disrupted global energy markets and increased fuel prices in many countries. It also reshaped security discussions in Europe and strengthened military alliances like NATO. So, conflicts like this show how regional wars can have global impacts.
Yeah, and it also pushed many countries to rethink their security strategies. One of the biggest impact of the Russia-Ukraine war was Europe energy policies. For many years, several European countries depended heavily on Russian gas. But after the conflict escalated, they started looking for alternative energy sources. This led to increased investment in renewable energy and new energy partnership with other countries. So in a way, the conflict forced Europe to rethink its energy dependence.
Yeah, and it's also show how energy and geopolitics are closely connected. In situation like this, international organizations play a very important role. Organizations like United Nations try to mediate conflict, provide humanitarian assist, and promote international cooperation. For example, UN agency often provide aid to refuse and displaced population during conflict and disaster. However, this organization sometimes face limitations because of decision often depend on the political instance of powerful country. So while international institutions are important, their effectiveness when can vary depend on global politics.
Yeah, that's true. Cooperation between countries is essential for these institutions to function effectively.
And honestly, when we look at all these challenges terrorism, climate change, cyber threats, and conflicts it becomes clear that no country can solve these problems alone. Global cooperation is absolutely necessary. For example, climate change requires coordinated action from multiple countries, and addressing terrorism often requires intelligence sharing between governments. Similarly, international trade and economic stability depend on cooperation between states. So, the future of global order will likely depend on how effectively countries can work together to address these shared challenges.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest takeaway from our discussion today. The world is becoming more interconnected, so solutions also need to be global in a way.
So, if we step back and look at the bigger picture, today's global order is shaped by several interconnected challenges terrorism, climate change, migration, technological competition, and shifting power dynamics. And honestly, what stands out is how interconnected everything has become. A crisis in one part of the world can quickly affect another. Addressing these challenges will require not just national policies but stronger international cooperation. Thank you for listening to Borders, Global Challenges, and the Emerging World Order. Thank you, everyone, for your valuable insights.
Thank you. Thank you.